Hello, I'm Kurt Hyland, and I'm here to talk to you today about brew confusion, and I'll go into a lot more details that you're going to want to hear right now. So here's my elevator pitch. So imagine IKEA. If you've been to IKEA before, you know how overwhelming IKEA can be. Now imagine that IKEA without a path, where everything was just kind of mixed together, all the different types of furnitures, all the different rooms, all the different pieces, and how overwhelming and confusing that could be. Well, that's what the brew landscape is currently in the Pacific Northwest. A ton of breweries opening every day, a ton of different brews to choose from, more every day. How does somebody navigate through this landscape? Because currently there's not a path. Well, that's where brew confusion comes in. The current websites out there, they don't provide the information or the tools consumers need. Brew confusion will be that website. Several different tools to navigate the brew landscape. One-stop website for tools and information. Currently, you can go to multiple websites and probably put together all the information you need. But wouldn't you rather go to one spot and get it all? That's brew confusion. And finally, it brings together the brewers and the brew enthusiasts in an ultimate collaboration. So a company description will be located in Camas, Washington. It's a web-based company providing the following. First, brewery and brew trackers. People need to be able to sort out all the different breweries and brews that they've been consuming or visiting. A brew suggestion tool. Once they know which breweries and which brews they've had, they need a tool that will help them suggest the next one because there may be a lot of choices available. Tap lists provided from brewery partners. You want your information on the go. When you're deciding which brewery you want to go to next, you want to know what brews they have on tap so you can make an informed decision. Homebrew forums. All types of people are homebrewing out there. Everybody's experimenting, creating their own brews. They need a forum where they can share ideas, bounce recipes off each other, and maybe sample each other's beers. A beer rating tool. Well, maybe you want to share information about a beer you had that wasn't so good or a beer that you had that knocked you off your feet. There will be a venue for that as well. Online merchandise sales. We want to be able to sell brew confusion merchandise, and we also want to be able to provide an area for our brewery partnerships to sell their merchandise as well. And then finally, links to local breweries. People want access to beer, people want access to breweries, and brew confusion is going to provide that. So the industry. Let's do a little bit of study about the market and the industry that we're going to compete in. We're aligned with the craft brew industry, NAICS code 312120 for people that love numbers. Craft brew industry overall is growing rapidly. The large domestic brew market is growing slowly, if not at all, but the craft brew industry is growing very rapidly. There's very few barriers to entry in this market. If you have a dream, you have a recipe, and you have some limited capital, you can start your own brewery. Seasonal impact is minimal. People like fall seasonal brews. People like winter brews. People like spring brews, and people love summer ales. So seasonal impact is small, and websites providing information on the craft brew industry are few, and only a couple are relatively established. The market is ripe for a new entrant. So speaking of the market, what a great way to lead into it. If you're thinking about the craft brew market now and the typical craft brew drinker, you may think of a Portland, Oregon guy with a giant beard, maybe a hat, skinny jeans, all different kind of stereotypes come out, right? Well, in reality, the market is shifting. 21 to 35-year-olds are the biggest craft brew drinkers, and almost half are women. Cheers to the lady below with her ice cold microbrew. Whites are still the largest craft brew drinkers, but Hispanic consumption of craft brews is growing rapidly as well. Most people don't think of that. The bottom 60% of income earners account for almost half of the craft brew consumption. It used to be just maybe middle to high income people that could afford to dabble in craft brew. That's no longer the case. Everybody's enjoying the craft brew. Everybody's enjoying craft breweries. The craft brew segment is the fastest growing of the domestic beer industry. It's growing rapidly, and there's a play to provide information for those that are growing within it. Well, let's talk a little bit about the competition because they're out there, and you've got to know the enemy, right? So We want to focus primarily on websites providing craft brew information. There's domestic and import beer industry is, they have websites as well, but I'm not considering them direct competitors. So there's really only two similar relevant websites out there that are legitimate competition. The first one, beeradvocate.com. The second one, ratebeer.com. Both websites are established sites with a established following. Both provide some of the tools Brew Confusion will provide, but neither site provides all of the tools that Brew Confusion will provide. So Brew Confusion, I can't emphasize this enough, Brew Confusion is the only one-stop option. So we need a plan, right? We need a strategy. We need that roadmap to get us from where we are to where we want to be. So first of all, we want to differentiate our product by utility and customer service. We want to provide more value by number of tools and information provided. If you're a website that provides information and links to craft brews and breweries, you've got to have that right base. You've got to provide legitimate information. We want to provide value by providing the best customer service from seed to shelf. Customer service is where we will excel. That's how we're going to differentiate. These other sites may be difficult to navigate through. If you have a problem, if you have a question, you can't get a hold of anybody. If you have some feedback to give, you can't find a place to give it. We will optimize all those areas. We want consumer information because we want to make it the best experience available. Utility, it's got to be a one-stop website. I will continue to reiterate that, one-stop website. And we need to partner with as many brewers and breweries as possible because we need that information base to be large. And finally, customer service, like I mentioned before, online surveys, evolving tools which respond to customer needs. We want to be the business that consumers can speak to, a face that consumers can speak to so that we can provide them with the best experience. So there are risks and there are watch outs along this journey. Like I mentioned earlier, there's very few barriers to entry. A lot of people can join this industry. A lot of people can provide information. So it's relatively easy to enter. So, competition can increase. There's two established competitors already, and they maintain that the earlier first entrant status. Will be early entrant, but not first entrance or first mover. But we can learn from their mistakes. Application download fees turn off the customer. This is one of our revenue channels, our application download fees. So we got to make sure that there's enough value created so that they feel that they're getting value for the money that they're investing. How do we mitigate the risk? We got to clearly differentiate our product. It's clearly got to be better than competitors. Excellent customer service, like I mentioned before. People have to enjoy their experience at brewconfusion.com. And the price point has got to be right for the app downloads. We got to get it right. We've got to get it right. We've got to get it right. And we will create that value for the consumer will be willing to pay to download our app. So what's the marketing plan? We must convince the consumers they cannot truly enjoy the craft brew without Brew Confusion. We've got to be that supplement, that complement to that craft brew. They're drinking a microbrew. They got the beer in one hand. They got Brew Confusion on a tablet or a phone on the other hand. Initial free application download period. We've got to get those customers to come to Brew Confusion, and we've got to entice them initially. Once we get them in, we feel that we'll provide enough value to keep them. We got to provide clarity one beer at a time. We're going to provide clarity to the consumer one beer at a time. Hey, what better way to provide clarity than beer, right? So Brew Confusion slogan, that is our slogan, and that is the grow of the marketing plan. We will get them with the initial free application download period, and we will keep them by providing excellent customer service and utility, and we will grow the consumer base by word of mouth, by print advertising, by apparel and paraphernalia, web-based advertising. We will get our name out there and we'll provide such a great experience people will want to run and tell their friends about us. So the sales strategy, the founder and the sales manager are responsible for the development and execution of the sales strategy. Now, we want to target craft breweries and craft brew consumers. You want to target the craft breweries to build that information base and also to entice them to advertise on our website and to sell their merchandise. And we want to target the craft brew consumers because really they're the main base, the main target that we want to target because they're the ones that are going to download our apps. They're the ones that are going to look at the advertising. They're the ones that are going to purchase merchandise. They are the ones that are going to use our product. Craft breweries. We want to provide online advertising for craft breweries. We want to sell craft brewery merchandise online. There's a couple of different revenue streams. And then for the craft brew consumers, we want the application downloads, right? The application download fees is a revenue stream, and we want merchandise sales, which is another revenue stream, and we want to maximize both. So operations, like I mentioned earlier, our office space will be in Camas, Washington. That's where we'll be headquartered. We have 3 employees, the founder, myself, who is owner as well. 12 to 15 years experience in business, in finance roles and production roles and operation roles, several different roles in the business environment. The sales manager and technology manager, we're still sourcing these roles, but both will need to have an MBA. They'll need to have extensive experience, and they need to they need to have the right personality and the right competitive spirit to mix with myself, so that we have that synergy between the three employees. The initial website development will be outsourced, but it'll be overseen by the tech manager, and merchandise production will be outsourced as well. Distribution initially will be through UPS and FedEx, but after initial growth, we'll bid that through local freight companies. Technology impact. Well, Brew Confusion is a web-based company, right? And because of that, technology is very impactful. So the website must be current, it must be relevant. It must have all those bells and whistles that all different age groups will enjoy. Technology on any web-based tool, we have to be able to provide people information on the go, on desktop computers, laptop computers, smartphones, tablets, you name it, Brew Confusion will be on it. So Brew Confusion website must enable speed. We must be quick. You can't have one of those lagging websites that drive everybody crazy. Utility, like I mentioned before, we've got to provide a useful and a product that the consumer can utilize. Facilitation. The product must facilitate easy maneuvering through information and getting to the information they need. And finally, availability. We can't have our website offline. It's always got to be available to the consumer when they want it and how they want it. And the technology manager, as I mentioned before, is responsible for all technology aspects. The org structure, founder, owner, I'm responsible for all aspects of the business. And as I mentioned earlier, I touched on my resume there. Technology manager, we're currently sourcing, but they'll be responsible for the initial website development and overseeing that. The contractor will actually do the development, and responsible for ongoing website maintenance and software, hardware upgrades so that we can maintain relevancy. And then the sales manager, we're also currently sourcing this role, but he'll be responsible for all inside and outside sales. So environmental and socially responsible. Brew Confusion must be a responsible member of the community. We got to be environmentally friendly. We've got to hug trees. We got to hug them, right? And leave the environment better than we found it. Socially friendly. We got to be an active participant in the community, engage in social activities. We are a member of the community, so we must be a responsible member of the community. And we must be profitable first, though. We can't do any of this if we're not profitable. If we're not profitable, we can't continue to be in business, and we won't be able to achieve our environmental and social sustainability agenda. So exit plan. Long-term goals is build and sustain revenue and profit growth. That's pretty obvious, right? But we believe we'll be profitable after the first year. And sustained profit and revenue growth will enable comfortable living for all 3 employees. We want to be able to live comfortably. We currently don't have any plans to sell the company, but if we do, it'll be first offered to the other 2 employees and then offered outside if there's no internal interest. So financials. Our initial funding request is $100,000. A small business administration loan if possible, and that'll be used for initial website development, hardware and software purchases, and the facility setup. The app fees, the merchandise sales, and advertising are the 3 primary revenue streams. 2.5% price increases annually, and volume growth through 2018. After that, we think we'll become a little bit flat and a little bit more stagnant after that, and see just average growth, and possible, like I said, after the first year. So what's the ask? What do I want? We're a small company, and we're looking to leverage explosive growth in the craft brew industry, and we need $100,000 SBA loan, if possible, at the lowest interest rate possible. And like I said, that will be used for initial website development, hardware, software purchases, and facility setup. We're seeking to retain 100% control over the company. So finally, Brew Confusion will be that beacon that lights the path where the needs of the brewer and the needs of the brew enthusiasts meet in the ultimate brew collaboration. We are